This is a very pretty story. So one of my followers, his girlfriend, asked him for a ring. He wants to model it in Blender, but he's like learning, and well, so he can learn designing that ring in Blender. And here we are. Hello, dear and blessed channel. Welcome to this video. My name is Damien Rohrbach. Today, 3D jewelry modeling with Blender 3.2. I really hope that my follower will happily get married. Let's learn to design this ring in Blender. So he did very well in sending me the reference images to my email, and I'm going to take you through all the steps to create this design in 3D in Blender. Let's get started. All right, so the first most important thing is the ring size. So you need a ring size measuring tool. It looks like this. So you can get one, buy one, or simply go to a jewelry store, to a jeweler. All right, so welcome to Blender 3.2. Blender 3.3 alpha is already out, but for now we're going to stick to 3.2. Okay, first thing, because this is a modeling video, let's erase everything in the scene. Okay, so finger size, front view, numpad number 1, add mesh, circle, let's make it 120 vertices. So size, today I'm going to do a size 6, American size, so it's 1645 divided by 2 because it's the radius. Here we are, and let's align to the view, right? That's normally what you start with, the fingers, which is the base, the shape of most of the rings. Sometimes you start with the gemstones or other design elements, but well, most of the rings you start with the finger size. Now let's start saving. Never forget to save. So get used to saving your file at the beginning. It makes things a lot easier later because you'll just do a Ctrl+S every minute, every 30 seconds. No, not true. You'll do Ctrl+S every time you're about to do something important or after doing something important in your file. Right, so now, after the finger size, most of the time come the gemstones, or the gemstone. Here we're going to have an oval cabochon gemstone, so we need to add a mesh sphere. Let's do a 62 segment, 32 rings. Now about the size, go check gemstone sizes chart because they are standard sizes and we always want to use a standard size, otherwise you'll get in a lot of trouble finding that gemstone at that specific size in real life. It's even hard when you're using standard sizes, so just imagine where you're not using standard sizes, you will have to have the gemstone especially cut for you. You'll have to find a gemstone cutter, and that's so much extra work and so much extra problems that most of the time you'll end up just losing time and not getting what you need or what you want, and that's generally not the proper way to do it. It's generally better to first buy the gemstones or the gemstone. First buy it, So then you exactly know at what size you have to do your 3D model and then be able to have the ring made in real life. That's generally what a jewelry designer really wants to achieve, is to see the design become real in silver or gold or platinum or any other noble and pretty metal available, or even in any other material available. Always nice to have professional recommendations and to learn professional tricks and to connect to reality and to real knowledge and to professional experience, to know exactly what you're doing and what you will face in real life when manufacturing the jewel yourself or have it manufactured for you. So I'm going to use a size of 6 per 8 per 4. Okay, that's my oval shape, but we need to go to edit mode, tab, switch side view, Alt Z, Alt A, B, stick these guys, delete vertices, and now we're going to smooth out the bottom part. Let's go to the move tool, but let's do an extrude first on the Z-axis here. Once, make it a bit smaller. Adjust the distance. Extrusion again. Like this. Scale. A bit closer so the bottom is smoothed out as it would be in real life. F to close. See, now it's all solid. Okay, it's closed. That's why we used F to close this face. A. And let's go to mesh normals to the outside, just to be sure that every face is facing to the outside. Exit edit mode, tab key, object shade smooth. This is just so it looks a bit better on screen. Okay, now let's rename this F2 oval gemstone. Right here. Always remember, nice names, clearer file, better process. Control S, save. All right, so now the gemstone needs a metal setting to put the stone in. So we're going to do a Shift D, click in place. Don't move it at all yet. Now we're going to scale it. Let's go to side view. Let's do an Alt Z to have a look at thicknesses. Okay, so it's going to be lower and higher, so we need SZ. Okay, so we want the distances to be pretty even here and there, and also we need to check those thicknesses. So add mesh, let's add a sphere, and let's come around here and have a look. Okay, here we have around 0.5 millimeters. All right, this is the lower limit. You don't want the lower limit. Let's scale the sphere. Let's go at 0.80 some, 85 some. Okay, now let's put the sphere just at the border of the gemstone, and let's take this new object that is going to become the bezel setting, which is a plane setting around the gemstone. Very basic stuff. G, Z, S, Z. Okay, so adapt your distances by moving and scaling. So also the bottom gets a similar thickness. Right, so now or later, but let's do it now. Let's create a material here. Just create a new material for the bezel, and let's call it white gold. Maybe my follower will do that in silver, but generally wedding rings are made of white gold. Okay, so this has a material now, the gemstone also. Okay, so now let's go back to the bezel, because obviously we can't have all that covering the gemstone. Doesn't work like that. Edit mode, Alt A. Now we are going to take the top part here and delete these friends. So the metal will have to be pushed over the edges of the gemstone, obviously covering some parts of the gemstone. Then it also depends on who is setting the gemstone. There are many preferences, technical preferences, personal preferences. If you do it too low, you won't have enough metal to properly set the gemstone, because the gemstone will slip out of its position. All right, now let's take these and let's do an F. Let's close it again. Okay, if you want, you can use the Alt Z to go from X-ray to solid view. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so now also obviously we need to remove the metal on the inside. We can't have this shape totally solid, because the gemstone must come in sooner or later. So let's go out of edit mode and let's go to modifiers, Boolean, fast, difference, and let's remove the gemstone. Okay, now let's take the gemstone and hide it for a minute. All right, so this is what we get. Okay, but this is what the bezel looks like when finished, closing over the edges of the gemstone. So obviously when you do your 3D model for the settings, it's all right to have more metal than the finished product, because the jeweler and the gemstone setter are going to do the work to remove that excess of metal. They're going to cut it properly with an angle if necessary to make it look pretty, to make it with a shiny polished finish, doing the work properly. You won't have all that metal covering the gemstone, because it looks ugly and it hides the gemstone, which is sad. All right, so that's the difference between the 3D model made for manufacture and then the manufacturing process. But now we need to adjust this bezel to the prototype shape. So let's go and make an Alt C to apply the Boolean, and let's go to edit. So what we can do here is we can take these vertices and let's do an SZ. We need to adjust and also scale like this. So now it's going to look bad, because the bezel for the prototype needs to be higher, because the prototype for 3D printing needs to be higher than the gemstone, and also be able of letting the gemstone in. So here I adjust the shape on the inside and the outside. If you lack thickness and the bezel is too small to work inside the bezel to make the gemstone fit, you'll have to redo your modeling or your prototype and your casting. So better exaggerate a bit the proportions of your bezel in this case, so you'll have proper thickness to get the gemstone properly set in real life. All right, so this is the general shape of the bezel. You can make it straighter on the inside and the outside if you want. Okay, I don't like the look of the shading here, so let's go to Object, Shade Flat. Looks better. And also we need to have a cut on the inside. Let's go Shift S to bring the 3D cursor right there. Add Object, Cylinder. Let's put 120 vertices. And let's adjust the scale to have a small border on the inside. Let's adjust the scale to have a small border on the inside. All right, and let the cylinder go through and through of the bezel. You can hide the gemstone to have a look at what's going on the inside. And here we need a new boolean, difference fast, and let's remove the cylinder. So let's hide the cylinder and we get this. So this hole is called the light because it's very important for the light to come through the gemstone to make the gemstone shine. Otherwise it looks very dark and dull, and that would be a very sad gemstone, a poor gemstone, improperly set. And also because these cuts are mostly needed for setting the gemstone and sometimes to unset the gemstone. Yes, because sometimes you need to, who knows, make a reparation, maintenance process on the jewel. And this cut here lets you take the gemstone out. Obviously, it's not always an easy process because you could break the gemstone. But anyway, general jewelry knowledge, basic jewelry knowledge, you need this cut. Okay, so let's apply the boolean to the bezel. Only do that when you know that you won't be making any other modification. Otherwise, make a copy using the Shift D copy to keep the original before moving forward in the design. Okay, so here now we just want to move the gemstone higher. Okay, so we can put the floor of the bezel at the edge of the finger side circle, like this. All right. Let's save right now. And obviously, we're going to proceed to the next very important step, modeling the body of the ring. It's also called the shank, or simply the ring itself, because we need metal going around the finger, which is basically the principle of a ring, you know? All right, so now let's quickly make some naming. This circle is the ring size 6. Here we are. The sphere is the measurement ref sphere, and that cylinder was the light cutter. Let's remove it from rendering, just in case. Okay, so now let's take the ring size here. Let's make a Shift D enter to make a copy. And let's go to edit mode. So this friend, we're going to move it this side. Let's do an F. Let's do an extrusion. Bigger is better. A mesh normals outside. Exit edit mode. Let's see. Okay, so we are going to use the shrink wrap modifier mostly. Just telling you, because we're going to start modeling the ring. So, okay, so now here we're going to add a mesh plane. We're going to move it higher down the ring size here, and now we'll have to model some borders that are thicker than the body of the ring. All right, so the borders, I want them near 1 millimeter. I'm going to put a bit more. I'm going to put 1.2 like this. And now, like I said, we're going to use the famous shrink wrap modifier. It is a nearest surface point. On surface, yes, on surface, and the target is the ring size here, this. Okay. So now with this, we need to start modeling the shape of the ring. So let's go to edit mode, and there are going to be borders first. And I need to keep as much as possible this thickness to have nice and even borders. All right, so we're going to take two vertices and extrude and adapt, rotating and adjusting the position. So rotate and grab most of the time. Okay, so now I'm going to proceed following edges of the bezel. Okay, and we'll go all around. So here someplace the border finishes, but I'm going to bring it fully to the tip. Then I explain more about the general shape. Oh, and here we can add a mirror modifier based on the gemstone. Don't go too much into details now. The only important part here is to keep the thickness of the border, because this is a border. All right. So we might want to take these vertices and at least test and have a go at bringing them closer to the surface. Okay, go to X-ray if you want, and further to the left or to the right, depends if your design gets deformed too much or not enough. Might happen too. Okay, so check the distance on the z-axis. Okay, but don't forget to avoid to cross the finger size, because it's not good for the shrink wrap modifier for the projection, right? Okay, so now we have this. You can even hide cylinder if you want. It's not necessary to have it all the time. Okay, so here I can go to edit mode and I can start closing this. So I'm going to make it cross like this. We'll talk about the clipping and the merge a bit later. Now let's adapt the shape to the design. There's going to be another round faceted gemstone right there, set into the metal. Talk about that later. For now, let's follow the shape we have. Okay, so these guys, let's make an SY0 to straighten them out like this, because that border is going to continue also in a straight manner. So we want everybody to be, if needed, take also the inside ones here, SY0. So now they're all on the same line. Here I'm going to do an EZ and also an SZ0. Okay, check that you are on the outside. We're on the outside. Okay, here we also want for all these friends here an SX0. So they're all on the same level. All right. Mainly the difference between a silver jewel and a gold jewel, because gold is roughly 100 times more expensive than silver. The gold version will have a lot of effort on making the ring lighter, okay, to use less gold and avoid excessive prices due to the gold material, right? In real life, gold is very expensive and a lot more than silver. Also depends where, but generally, and depends the economy, mostly and most of the time, gold is around 100 times more expensive than silver. Okay, so from here, I'm not going to make the clipping just yet. Before that, I'm going to add the solidify modifier with an offset of 1 to the outside and a thickness of 1.5. And this is starting to get better and better. Okay, so the important element here is that body of the ring holds bezel. And anyway, we are going to hide the gemstone bevel. Okay, here, instead of using the clipping, you go to edit mode. So I'm not using the clipping, but I'm going to use the merge at a distance of maybe 0.2. And you can see that now the solid is closing here at the top and also at the bottom. So I'm crossing the axis a bit here, there. We can see the merging distance by doing this. You can move. Okay, so from that distance, it's not merging. I put it at 0.2. And we can see the effect right there. Oh, from there, it's merging. So when using the merge, you don't have to cross the axis, and that's better. Because the clipping always creates a problem with an inside face that is not welcome. Here, you see that. So here also, I'm going to check the merge distance. Here we're merging. I'm going to check that we're still on the left side of the axis. This is great. The green axis, which is the y-axis. Okay, this is very clean. Now, the other aspect, we want to see if we can use the bevel modifier. Okay, so this is very slight. Let's see if with more bevel 0.3. So we can't, because they're generally, the clamp overlap is turned on to avoid a destructive bevel depending on the distances you have because most of the time, if you have sharp tips like these, sharp corners, in fact, the bevel can't be made by the software, by Blender, by mathematics, also because the borders are going to overlap themselves and destroy the mesh. That's why most of the time the clamp overlap, and by default the clamp overlap is turned on to avoid that problem. Okay. Here it seems pretty nice, but we have too much bevel anyway. I'm going to go back at 0.15. Okay, this is pretty good. And now also we want to see if we can make the subdivisions better by adding the subdivision modifier. Okay. And let's go at level 3. So I am using the bevel modifier to keep the edges sharp, because in this design that they sent me, the edges are sharp. Let's see, if you remove the bevel here, you get a more organic finish with rounder edges and shapes because of the subdivision. But in this occasion, we want this. The edges are flatter and then rounded on the edges thanks to the bevel. And we can also have a look at the segments of the beveling. You can try 2, 3. Okay, I think 2 is great. Okay, now before we move on with the rest of the ring, I just want to have a look at a bevel on the bezel. Sounds funny, but that's exactly how it sounds. Bevel on the bezel. Okay, so 2 segments, no, 1 segment and more amount. Okay, let's remove the clamp overlap. Okay, so that's what's happening when you have too much amount and no clamp overlap. Let's go at 0.15, 0.1. Okay, so obviously it was already too much right from the beginning. 0.02. Okay, I think 0.02 is nice. And let's try the subdivision surface modifier. It might fail, and also it might crash the software or freeze the software. You must be aware of that. So beware of the subdivision surface modifier. And okay, it's doing the math right here. Count Blender. Okay, so like I said, generally when you had booleans previously, you are going to have these kinds of failures, but that's okay, because instead of that you can also try a remesh. Okay, let's maybe go at 0.5. Okay, let's do a smooth shading. Let's go at 0.2. But then let's try also a smooth modifier at something like a 50 factor repeat. And this is quite nice. Let's try 75. Now beware with the smooth, because it reduces your mesh. Okay, it erodes your mesh because it's smoothing the mesh. But because I gave an extra thickness and an extra height to my bezel at the beginning, and I talked about that enough. See, it's always better to have some reserve, some extra to do this. So now the bezel is looking great. So like I said, this is the manufacturing proportion for the bezel, for the stone setting. Okay. but it looks bad. Honestly, it does, because it's covering the gemstone, so it's taking away the pretty gemstone would be covered, and for a render, that is not the version you want. So generally, when you're modeling jewelry, you need to make a model for manufacturing, for 3D printing, or there are other processes for manufacturing jewelry. Obviously, there are quite many, in fact. Technologies and hand processes depends. Always a combination of all these processes. You can make a laser cut. You can make a CNC cut. Well, that's not the matter today. Okay, but so what I'm going to do here, let's do a Shift D. Okay, and let's call this setting. Maybe put it at the beginning for render. And the other one, this one at the end for prototype. Right. So let's hide the prototype for a second, because, well, in my case, after modeling this ring, I will be more interested in making the render of this ring, because I'm not going to manufacture this ring. This ring is for my follower who asked about how to model this ring, this design, and he will be manufacturing it for his future wife. Like I said, I really hope they'll get happily married. All right, so I'm more about the render version. Okay, so I'm going to adapt. Here I can adapt all this. And like I said, what's going to happen on the manufacturer version, let's take these vertices, maybe those two. So here I need to come to the closed version after the stone setter and after the jeweler's work and then the gemstone setter. This bezel is going to be closed here, but also let's have a look. Here I'm going to do something. See these flat borders? Well, they're not pretty. All right. So for a second here, we need to make a cutter, because in real life, you generally won't have, well, you might have that flat edge, but, well, personally, I don't keep flat edges around the gemstones. You generally do something like a 45 degrees cut. Okay, so let's model that. Let's go at 6 braids, which is the same proportion as the gemstone, and let's come here. Something like this. Maybe not that strong here on the z-axis, all right? But anyway, so here we have these modifiers on the bezel, but we're going to add a boolean, and the boolean should be, well, I would say, after the bevel, and let's remove the sphere, so difference from the sphere, H right there. Okay, so the sphere, which is the sphere border bezel cutter. Okay, we can lower it numerically if we want, 10.9. So you can see the progress of the boolean. Yeah, something like that. All right, let's show the gems. Sorry, let's go out of the local view. Okay, now we have this. And this is pretty nice. So I'm going to adapt the thickness of the ring. This would be the solidify modifier at maybe 1.8 now. 85. Okay, this is really interesting. Okay, so we need to bring a gemstone right there. So let's append from another file. So my gemstones right here. This one you can buy on the Blender market. It's the upgraded gemstone collection. A very fine asset, you might ask. Okay, diamond. Here's the diamond. Okay, this diamond is going to have 2 millimeters. Copy paste here. Let's put it in position about here. Okay, let's center on X. All right, pretty nice right here. So this gemstone is actually a gypsy setting. That's how it's called. I don't like the term. It's rather plain metal set or direct metal set. Anyway, there's many ways. Okay, so here, let's do a Shift S, cursor to selected, add mesh circle, 2 millimeter size. Let's go to edit mode, Alt Z, here's the circle. Extrusion on the Z axis, F to close, Control I to invert the selection. Okay, let's be precise here at the level of the fillet of the stone. Extrusion on Z S. About here it's fine. Easy. Let's go down here. ES. Let just move this here. Easy. This. Yep. Now here I'll A B because it's a gypsy setting. I'm going to do this here to the upside of the fillet, extrusion, and then scale here. And maybe not that. This here like a 45 degrees effect. All right. This is a cutter again for the light. Okay, so here we might, okay, sorry. For the cutter, edit mode A, and be sure normals outside. Exit edit mode. Okay, so here we need a Boolean, but before doing that, like I said already, we need to correct the thicknesses of these edges and make the body of the ring solid. So first, let me do the corrections because the rest of the ring depends on the edges. Okay, so the edges must be correct before moving forward. So this edit mode. Okay, so here we must have a look at, okay, so the design is pretty much like that. My shapes vary a bit compared to the reference image, but that's exactly how you do these types of designs. Okay, here I might need well, first I might need, okay, to bring these guys down. Okay, so we can see live how the thicknesses are varying. So obviously it depends on your subdivisions, and don't forget that the amounts that we've used in solidify and bevel and subdivision are also changing how the live edition from the edit mode is affecting what you see on screen, right? Where's that one from? Okay, just here. Okay, but these Okay, so this is almost the result, but we need, let's make a copy of this, Shift D. All right. Now, first, I'm going to make this thinner. Let's go at 1. We'll see if it's good enough. No, let's go at 1.50. But now here, we only need the outside edges. Okay, so we basically need Alt A, and let's start selecting the inside. The inside. So let's start deleting these vertices. It's not always easy to see what's on the inside, because obviously if I erase by mistake something on the outside, I have a problem. And exactly, that's what I said. Well, because if you erase by mistake something on the outside, you won't have the perfect fit anymore with the inside. I hope you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? I think you understood. You should have understood that already quite some time before. Okay, so here vertices, and these are the edges. Okay, now we have that problem that we need to close this. So this is one single line, and we're going to fill it manually because the topology does not allow much for another technique. Honestly, there ain't any tricks. Sometimes there ain't any fast trick. Okay, here we have an orientation problem. So let's start A, mesh, normals outside. Okay, you can see the progression of the orientation there. This is good because the modifiers, I turned them back on. Okay, so this is making the solid. Okay, and what do we want? We want the entire body to be solid, but with less thickness, right? So this is not too hard. And also because the vertex count is not necessarily the same on each side. And that's what makes a problem right away. Generally, we know that when we can't be sure that the vertex count is even on each side, well, the grid fill or all these kinds of functions or tools won't work. Okay, because the software won't find any solution or good solution, and this will be a problem. So here, okay, I need more vertices because these are closing with those all the way through the all the way through the other side. Okay, and now here also, okay, let's start doing some filling here. So how good is it? It's pretty good. Obviously, it's pretty good so far. But here we must change the strategy because we need to connect, let's say, horizontally now. So we need to subdivide here. And now you obviously understand why I was doing this manually, because I must correct the vertex count as I go. Okay, so beware of the selection. Obviously, I selected one on the down part, which was totally wrong. So focus. Okay, so here, okay, by example, here the connection is correct, but because of the orientation of the faces, the modifiers are doing weird things. All right, but let's keep moving forward, and it's correct. Okay, then maybe we have some normals orientations that need to be corrected. Actually, you can do that already. Let's do A, or I forgot one face maybe. But as always, now you can see how the process goes. Okay, to the outside, that was the normal. So we're good. Because obviously, maybe you select only 3 vertices. And almost as always, we don't want triangles, we want quads. Generally speaking, for 3D printing and 3D modeling, you might want to keep the quads for vertices polygons. Okay, and here let's do a W subdivide so I can close here. So this is like a small puzzle. Actually, in real life, making puzzles, like make a 7,000 pieces puzzle, that's interesting. Is a good training for a designer or for a jeweler also. So also, if you want your kids to become designers, well, there's not necessarily an exact training that they should get as kids. Like, let them be kids, honestly. Okay, and here, are we getting a quad? No, we're not getting a quad, but we can, let's make a quad just for good appearances. Okay. And here we are. So also this solid design is interesting, very interesting here. And that's also why I accepted making this video, because, well, I asked for the reference images. The follower sent me the images. He sent me good quality images, and I like the design because it's a typical design. I mean, it's in a genre of design, a genre of jewelry that I know that I manufacture. I have manufactured these type of designs totally by hand, and I've taught that during decades. And but anyway, nice design, interesting. It's not high jewelry, because when he said complex, obviously I thought it would be more complex. But then I was interested because people are asking for more beginner videos. Well, this was a super nice story. I mean, a follower is getting married, so his girlfriend asked him to make the ring, or design the ring in Blender, etc., etc. I don't know all the details, obviously. I just got the comments on YouTube and one email, which actually was perfect. And here we are. Here we are. Okay, so so we have this. Here I can do something cool also on the shrink wrap. I can put some, let's try an offset of 0.1. Okay, so it doesn't overlap on the inside. Obviously, if you want, at 0, we are fine. This look here can be corrected on the view option here, generally with the clip. Let's put the clip at 0.2, and you can see that it corrects those artifacts. It corrects those artifacts here and there, but the rest is because the subdivisions are not that many. and we get some solids that come out of it, which after printing, after casting, once the jewel is in metal, it's absolutely no problem to sand perfectly the jewel and polish perfectly the jewel on the inside. So that's not a concern for properly manufacturing the design. Okay, but that's something that you don't know if you're not a jeweler. And that's why I always say, become a jeweler first, then start 3D modeling. All right, it's so obvious, so obvious. Please, I mean, you know, there's always people who don't agree, but well, that's their problem, it's not mine. I speak for, it's not an opinion. I mean, it's really based on real life experience. So I just made an offset on the inside, and I think this is great. Now the only thing that we need also yet on the edges and on the all the meshes interacting with that paste gemstone right there is the boolean. We might have a problem because of the mirror. Let's try. So let's remove the cutter. Let's hide the cutter. It seems to be working. We also need to do that on the solid body, the filler, the inside, boolean, fast, and it's from the cutter. Okay, so let's hide the gemstone here and let's see. Okay, this is a perfect cut. This is the solid body. Okay, let's actually call it the solid body. And these are the edges right there. Okay, so only that part, these parts, that's not very problematic, but it's not good. It's not good enough. So we need to come here and correct our friends. This, I know, these are the edges. Don't touch the edges because the edges are the reference. Never change the reference. Instead of erasing that vertex that is in a weird position, honestly. I think this guy also, okay, perfect. Let's correct. We have to be inside the edges so we can correct all of that without much problem. Okay, here, let's go on the inside. This is good, but now here, this is where, okay. The problem is this. On the z-axis, there, okay, let's do an SZ0. They were out of place. As simple as that. Let's go here. Okay, still have that one, I guess. And there, inside the edges. Obviously, if you move too much, you're going to lose the connection here, the proper filling between the edges and the solid part. That would be another mistake. And all these sides there. Let's properly select the control there. Okay, let's move to the inside. This side has almost nothing problematic, but let's move it to the inside right there. Okay, that line is the circle. I was worried about what's that line there. That's the ring size, the circle we made at the beginning. Okay, and all right, let's just hide the gemstone for a second. Okay, what's the name of this object? Okay, and okay, this is for render. Yes, I remember. Okay, and the diamond right there. Okay. All right, so
This is
achieved.
Achievement unlocked. Blessings for all of you. Hit the subscribe button. Become members. Take care of yourself. Be happy. See you soon. Bye-bye.